take one of a discussion, an in-depth discussion of business. How much is business going to contribute to the environment? My name's Gary Kasulu, and I'm joined by the founder of No CO2, Charles Appleby. Good morning, Charles.
Good morning, Gary. Great to be speaking to you about this really important subject. Far away.
I'm really excited. And what we're going to try and do is make this interesting and entertaining, but I would like to just frame how I know Charles. Charles and I were at a networking event, a self-development thing. We were doing it. I happened to hear him speak on stage. And that day I heard maybe 40 people speak. There was no one as moving and as impactful and as passionate as Charles. And he really made me sit at the edge of my seat he was talking about trees. Now, to me, I'm not a cynical person, but I thought that's got zero to do with me. But he seemed really passionate about this. It wasn't in the news as it is now, because it was a long time ago. So, Charles, can you recall that moment of where you stood on stage and you were talking about something that was not in the news? Could you tell us about that? And then we'll work from there to today's, where our relationship now, from there to there.
Wow, Gary, you've never told me that before, so I really appreciate that. So I felt on the course, I felt very inspired to put together some words talking about my interest in stopping global warming and the way that trees could help with that. And I had the opportunity, I remember there, is that people on the course and their guests were there, and there were 200 people. And I talked about why we needed to do something about global warming and the difference it would make. And at the end, I asked who would want to help. And I looked around the room and, oh my goodness, 90% of people wanted to help. But the most important person there, Gary, was obviously you, because you actually did something about it. We got together, we met up, we made it happen. And that's why we're sitting here with the wonderful backgrounds, the No CO2 logo, and the message, be green and be seen to be green, and how we help small businesses to go net zero, which is what we do.
That's it. And beforehand, I'm a marketeer. The message, I guess, wasn't getting through that how easy it is to change carbon to oxygen. So, I'm forgive me for everyone that knows how this works, but we go back to school. We learn that the leaves and the trees, they absorb the carbon and then oxygen comes out. That's how this works. Now, what we have too much carbon in the air, and the world is getting warmer and warmer, and that's going to have a knock-on effect to possibly countries being uninhabitable. I can't even say the word uninhabitable. Like Spain, they think Spain in 30 or 40 years will be so hot you can't live there. Things will turn to deserts. Water levels will rise. Things will be underwater. We're already seeing massive changes. So to my right is we set a target in April of the world's temperature not reaching 1.5, because when it reaches that temperature, we're all in trouble. Charles, could you tell us? I've really simplified things for people, and I'm sorry. I apologize if you remember how oxygen is turned into carbon's turned into oxygen. I just want people watching this to think, well, now I know why it's so important. How can I make a difference? And we're going to get to that. Charles, can you tell us what I've explained? How do we turn carbon to oxygen? Why is that 1.5 so important?
Perfect, Gary. You've done a great job. So trees are, I've come to understand this over the last few years, but trees are this amazing vehicle for making a difference. So what's particularly important for me and everyone else on this planet is that we keep global warming below 1.5 degrees, 1.5 max. Okay, that's so important. So trees have a massive function of removing CO2 from the air. So every time we cut down some trees, we start to destroy that function. Okay. The other things that trees do, they do so much more, which you've touched on. And another really important thing is that the work of planting the trees in tropical countries where people are in extreme poverty creates work for those people. And the trees themselves create habitats for wild animals and birds. Now, there's some really understanding that's only come out really in the last couple of years. I mean, experts have known about this for years, but it's really only coming out that if you have bare soil and you have heat on the bare soil, it not only does it dry it out, it kills the surface of it. Now, we had this terrific demonstration here in the UK last year. We hit crazily hot temperatures. 37 degrees measured in my garden, 40 degrees, measured by the officials and whatever. That heat, if you're sitting under a tree, which I did in my garden, if you're sitting under a tree, then that shades you, it shades the grass and it shades the soil. If the soil is exposed to that sun, then it just burns it up, it burns the life out of it, dries it out, and things won't live. It's as simple as that.
And it's a very thin layer of soil we have. I remember one of your guests saying it was like the peel of an apple. Truly, if you think of the world as an apple, the soil that we have, and that's why I never quite understood why concrete is such a damaging, so damaging to the environment. Have I said that correctly?
Concrete is damaging. I mean, in reality, we have a lot of roads. We have a lot of roads in the UK, which obviously we need roads. We've got a lot of concrete that's already been put down, but the issue is really what we do going forward. I mean, not suggesting taking up a load of concrete because it's already there, but you can see, the runoff. You can see the runoff of water. We had a really big rainstorm overnight. There's a huge puddle outside on the road because of that. It's very important that we don't concrete over more areas, and people capture rainfall. So in some of these really hot countries, people are getting the bulldozers out and they're creating huge scrapes of land, huge scrapes in the soil, so that when it does rain, the water captures there, and then plants and things survive, and they're watering the country. It's stopping it going crazily dry.
So I hope if you're
Because the other
watching,
problem is flooding. Gary, we've got to talk about flooding, because
absolutely,
climate change means not only extreme heat, it means crazy flooding, because suddenly when the rain does come down, too much comes down and floods everybody out. And trees really, really help
yeah.
with that, because they suck up the rain. And you can see this after rainfall. If you water your garden, you can see how much rain is taken up by the plants. Perfect, because it's holding the water there.
That's it. So I met Charles. He was talking about something I didn't think had anything to do with me, or that I could have an impact. We then we choose to work together. I think, well, what marketing is actually raising awareness of what you do. So Nike or trainers, that's the place you want to go, or whatever brand you happen to be. So we thought, well, no CO2. That says what it does on the tin. We want to reduce CO2. Is that so? How did you come to that name? How have you stuck to that name?
I wanted a name that was different, distinctive, which it absolutely is. So it's very easy to find. No one else is using that. And also, Gary, what's particularly important is no one else really seems to be talking in the same way about using trees to remove your own CO2 emissions. So, we're here today talking about helping businesses to go net zero and cut their emissions, and every business needs to do this. But also, people have the opportunity of doing this. People have the opportunity of cutting their emissions, and people can plant trees with us to go net zero. Now, I did this at the beginning of this project back in 2018. I thought, look, I don't want people saying to me, you haven't planted enough trees, you're not doing enough. So my wife and I each planted 3,500 trees, which will now be nicely growing away. But the point is, it's not crazily expensive to do this. It's very realistic, and you can plant some now and some later, as a lot of people do.
You see, so once we engage with each other, Charles would get on a train and literally spend 2 hours coming to my office, my studio here. We'd do worldwide webinars on special occasions. I think we got 50,000 views on one particular day. So we were quite consistent. We tried to do it once. Was it once a week, Charles?
We're doing once a month.
Once a month. Once a month. We're really consistent. We're getting great viewing. Nobody else was talking about it. And then whack, it happened. It suddenly became an important topic to talk. The media grabbed hold of it, and then COVID happened, and now we're in a position where it's actually reversed a situation. The reason that's motivated me to talk about this, one, of course, we want to get the brand out there, no CO2. Two, we'd like to say it's really easy to plant trees, and we started with the why. But the third reason I've wanted to talk to today is that when you put your budget together as a business, there's a budget for marketing. And I really would love you to put a tiny amount into your marketing budget on global warming. And you can use this for your marketing. And it's fine. It's almost, there's a word out there called greenwashing, where people say, oh, you're just putting a few pence away, you don't really care. So back over to Charles, who's the expert. What difference would it make if a company, say, put £20, £50 a month into the no CO2 fund, and then how would that have an impact in a family in Madagascar? There's a lot to unpack there. What would £20 to £50 difference make, and how will it have an impact on a family? How will it have an impact on the environment? Because we know that most human beings have a certain amount of trees they would need to plant just to offset all their carbon. So much to unpack there, Charles. Over to you. What impact would it make?
Thanks, Gary. First of all, it's very simple. However many trees you can afford to plant, then please do, because all the trees make a difference. What myself and Gary can do is to make the linkage between your business, your trees, so that people look at your business. Even if you're not planting masses of trees, they look at your business, they say, wow, this business is really making a difference, is really trying to help. Now, Gary, this week I was at a high-powered meeting in central London. You could hardly be more central. There were 200 people there, and these people were presenting, and they were saying, well, sort of 60% of our businesses, small businesses we're investing in, are doing something about, reducing their carbon footprint. It didn't look good. And someone at the back piped up straight away and said, hey, what's going on? How come only 60%? Businesses should be incorporating net zero from the beginning. They should be built into what they're doing. Great question. So they were straight away, that business and all their people were under pressure from real people out there saying, look, you're not doing enough. Now, what can you do with your business? Okay, so it can look a bit daunting, doing something with net zero and climate change, whatever. By the way, the government is saying to all businesses to do something. So this applies not only to big businesses, some of whom are doing something, but to small businesses as well. So it can look a bit daunting, and you may well have had consultants banging on your door saying, look, for thousands and thousands of pounds, they can do all sorts of stuff for you. And you think, oh my God, this is crazily expensive. It doesn't have to be. It's actually very, very simple. And we can have a discussion with you, anybody, 60 to 90 minutes, and we can really get you on track. Maybe you need thousands of pounds worth of consultancy, but don't start there. Start here. So this business of being green and being seen to be green, we've got an ebook about this, which you're very welcome to make contact with us. We'll send this to you. But it's really about being seen to be green. So we've got some great people who are already working with. So some of them, what they're doing is that they're going green and they're putting something on their website. Now, Gary, you're doing this. You've got on the front page of your website, you've gone net zero.
I'm a straightforward chap. I don't like to overcomplicate things. Charles, I had a brief conversation with him. He said you need to spend around just over £1,000, just about £1,000, and that would offset some of the carbon that you're using as a business. And I thought, wow, can't wait. And I said, look, because of cash flow, I'd like to split that into 4 or 5 payments. You said, no problem. You advised me. We did it. It needs topping up. I don't want to just do it once. I want to put it into my yearly budget.
Gary, thank you.
Yeah, well, it's the truth. I think that everyone can do this. And we've got it on the front page of our website. And it's because it's something I'm really passionate about. I'm a dad of 4. I want the planet to be here long after I'm gone. And my generation really have been some of the cause. The excess of the 80s and 90s have caused quite a lot of these problems. So let's see what I can do to fix that.
Yeah.
So
That's a
how do
great point,
businesses?
Gary.
Yeah.
We just didn't know. I mean, we just didn't know. We all carried on. We were flying and driving cars and all this sort of stuff and using outdoor heaters in the open air. We've all been doing this stuff because we didn't know. Now people do know. Pressure's on, and when you're using a lot of fossil fuels, when you're using a lot of energy, then people are thinking about it and thinking what they can do about it. So, as I say, some companies have got net zero on the front page of their website, like Gary. Other people are planting trees with each order. Each time you order, they're getting some trees. They're raising awareness. They're the sort of business that people
It was
interested in this
it's
look
your
out for.
idea that say you want a cup of coffee, you might put 20 pence or 5 pence towards your next payment for the trees. People will do
Absolutely, yeah.
it.
But there's some other businesses now, and this is really exciting. What they're doing, so this net zero is a flow down. It's your business and suppliers to you, right? So they're all part of this carbon emissions value chain, right? So we've got people already who are making their product net zero, so that when people buy from them, they're buying zero products. So we've got people doing mortgages, we've got people talking about doing furniture like this. And this is really exciting because you're then going to be buying a product which is already net zero. And for companies, it's so important because as we go forward, bigger companies are going to turn to smaller companies like Gary's and say, look, we've changed our rules. We're now only going to buy from companies who are net zero. What are you doing about it? And if you can't fill in the questionnaire, well, then you're going to get blown out. But why wait? Because the opportunity is there for so many businesses to declare that they're net zero, they're on track to net zero, what they're doing to make some interesting linkage between their business and planting trees, which can make all the difference.
Massive difference. So there's a thing at the minute called a carbon tax. It could get really confusing. What's the best value for money? Which ones will make the difference? Charles, do you mind shedding some light on that? Then after that, we're gonna just talk about, just go and see noco2.org. The first thing you're gonna see is it says plant trees, 4.5 trees for £1. Wow. I'd like to start with that carbon tax. How does that work? And then we're going to say the simplicity of being a business and how you can just be a few clicks away from planting trees. So that carbon tax, what's that all about, Charles?
The governments of the world are now making some efforts to make a difference. So the EU has put in place a carbon tax on basically if people in the EU buy goods from China, those goods will be taxed because China is not offsetting the CO2 emissions as much as they need. Many countries in the world are putting a tax on energy. So on the electricity generators they're paying about 80 euros a ton of CO2 emissions. Now, these are the sort of global prices that are being talked about, and businesses can buy carbon credits. Those carbon credits will cost quite a bit. Now, to be honest, using trees like we're doing, just getting some trees, is a lot more cost effective, but it's equally effective, more effective in terms of creating jobs. Now, we ourselves are moving into looking at, we've got a project with carbon credits, which would make a huge impact on the world. We're looking at millions of trees and helping 10,000 people out of extreme poverty. Wow. So this makes a big difference. But for now, the opportunity is there is to plant trees and make a difference. Now, what people do say, Gary, people say, well, look, planting trees, we've heard about this for a while. We've heard these stories about things going wrong, whatever. Is it really the best thing to do? Well, the point about trees fundamentally is that, look, trees are proven. There's 3 trillion trees in the world. There were more. Okay, so we need more trees in the world because people keep cutting them down because they like the idea of planting soya and keeping cattle instead, right? But the trees grow themselves. The opportunity is there. It's a proven way of doing it. Now, clearly, you need to put the right trees in the right place. You need to look after the trees, and that's an important part of this. So So trees still are a very, very good solution and very cost effective. But people do have the worries, but at the end of the day, still trees are still great value and great way to cut your CO2 emissions. What else can you do, Gary? What's an easy way to do it?
I've got teenagers, my children, and they they said to me, why bother washing apples, Dad, if the it's got chemicals on it? Because I don't know if you know, but these chemicals are really difficult to get rid of with just water. It's why bother? And I said because it makes you feel better, if anything. So we've talked about the why we want to reduce the temperature of the earth. Why? Because it looks great on your business. Why? Because it's a good marketing tool, if anything. But it just makes you feel better. It makes you feel better that you're making a difference to the world. So I'd like you to go over to N letters the number zero CO2 .org. Have a look. The first thing you're going to see is it says plant trees, 4.5 for £1. That's affordable. If you just start with £5 or £10 or £20, or you want to buy a bulk, that's how simple Charles has made this. Now the more cynical might think, well, how do we know that they're getting planted? I'd like Charles to answer that last question, and then we're going to put all the links you need down below, and let's make a difference. Let's really, really make a difference. Charles, how do we know that money is actually getting to where it needs to get to?
Sure, Gary. We use a tree planter which is US Gold Star Platinum certified. Okay, so each year they're doing more in terms of verification of the trees are planted and the trees are there. I've got no doubts that the trees are there. Of course, trees do die off, right? And that's why we plant a contingency of 20% more trees um, with everybody. For everybody, we plant that amount more. If you're particularly worried about these things, then what I say is very, very simple. Just buy more trees. Buy more than you need if you're worried about it. Yeah. Okay. And then the other thing people are worried about is fire, which of course, I mean, there's a downside to all of these situations. Fire is a problem with trees. But the way that that risk is reduced is that the trees that you buy with us, the trees are planting is spread across 9 countries, spread across 300 sites. So, one site, yes, can have a fire, one can have a problem, as these things do. But overall, your trees are going to be there. And as I say, if you're particularly worried about it, the answer is very simple. Just plant more trees.
Well,
And Gary asked earlier about the impact on the community. And
absolutely.
it's so important. I mean, the trees are creating new habitats for wildlife, birds, animals, all the rest of it, biodiversity. But also, particularly important is that the trees in the main are being planted by villagers who are in extreme poverty. Now, if people don't know, the figure for up in extreme poverty, it's been uprated in the last year, but it's still $2.15 a day. So it means that people are living on $2.15, which means that in London prices, they're living on the cost of about half a cup of a decent cup of coffee. So they're living on nothing. It's making a real difference. And the money from planting trees, it means that people can have a home. It means that they not only can get food, but they can send their children to be educated, which in a lot of these countries you have to pay for. So they can do all this. They can have a home. They can have a bit of a small holding, plant their own fruit and veg and stuff and whatever. It's transformational in terms of their lives, of having nothing to having something.
Well, if you've watched this and you've enjoyed it, please make a comment down below. We'd love to hear your comments. Charles will engage with you. If you need to contact Charles, the website, there is a contact us page on there if you want hold of the book that Charles has gone to all that trouble to get. How do we get hold of that book, Charles?
Just the email address, the website is on screen now, noco2.org. Just go through that, send us an email through that website, ask for the ebook, or give me a call. My details are on the website. Give me a call. We'll get the ebook to you, and then we're happy to follow it up with a 60 to 90-minute call, just talking through what you can do to cut your emissions, to remove your CO2, and how you can be green and be
And
seen to be
we
green.
know businesses.
Gary is an expert in
I
helping
don't think
people
about that, but
perceive
we
the
know
tree.
business. Like that's you put the fear of God into people, saying that I have to give up half an hour. If you've got that time and this is something passionate, grow. If you just want to donate some money towards the trees and you need some help with marketing, do it. Put as little or as much or as little time as you want or as little much money. If you've been interested in this topic, please press the subscribe button. We're always updating this YouTube channel. Things are moving on. We've got the COP in Dubai. We'll be televising, bring you the latest updates there. We happen to be a networking event in Enfield with the Metro Bank. Thank you, Metro Bank. So we're always doing things. Please stay in touch. Charles, you are an inspiration. You're amazing, making a big difference. So the last word should really be Charles. And I hope you've enjoyed today's broadcast. Charles, over to you.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, everybody, for listening to it. I mean, Gary's got it in one, really. This world, this global warming is such an important problem. Whatever you can do to help, the more
Mm,
people who help, some trees, if you can plant a lot of trees, talk to other people about trees. If you're a business, see how you can be green and be seen to be green, and that way you're messaging this not to just a few people, you're messaging this to a lot of people. And with the interest that there is in this subject, people will be heading your way. If you're not doing this stuff, people will be looking away and thinking, well, this is a boring
yeah,
old-fashioned business that's just not doing enough.
yeah.
Let's go and find a business that really is making a difference. And there's so much opportunity out there now to be that business that is making a difference.
Well, everyone, stay safe. Hope you've enjoyed this. And to the next time, please subscribe if you enjoyed. Thank you.